Mama Docter. She actually lives in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where she owns and operates a consulting firm. She is a former managing director at the Bob Marley Foundation. Dr. Megu currently organizes cultural events and initiatives for various clients, including the embassies of Ghana, Portugal, and the USA. She also serves as a liaison to the Africa Union Commission for the Accra, Ghana-based AU Diaspora Africa Forum, where she's responsible for strengthening African diaspora relations. And we're standing by to talk to her about the situation in Ethiopia. As I said earlier this morning, we at 6 o'clock or just about 6:15, we went live to Ethiopia. We spoke to Rastagasa on the ground. We're hearing now, even as we are on air, from Rasti and Sister Audrey are still on the ground in Ethiopia. They went there 3 weeks ago and they are still there. They'll be there for a while. And we pointed you this morning also to Global Research, the publications from Global Research for this month, just read this month, because they're looking at Ethiopia through the lens, to the Pan-African lens that we want to look at Ethiopia, talking about the latest development in what they call the hybrid war on Ethiopia. As we go to the phone line to speak with Dr. Docter Megu. Mama Docter, Sister Docter Megu, good morning. Thank you so much. Greetings, my sister, for coming on at short notice.
Good morning, Sister Kabu.
Yes. You know, Dr. Docter, we spoke this morning to Rastagasa down there he was at the EWF meeting. We had quite a few brethren greeting and so on. And he told us of the show of support this morning by hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians in Addis Ababa for Prime Minister Abiy. And we have asked our listeners to go online, go to Twitter, go wherever you can, and repost those pictures. Make sure you caption them right. You this morning sent me some that I have reposted myself. Now, let us start from there. Because if you listen to the US-centric media, you would think that there is no support for Prime Minister Ahmed on the ground. But obviously, massive, massive support. Ethiopia is with the PM. You're reading?
Correct. Yes. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, beloved. You finished with the question? I didn't want to interrupt.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so essentially I think we need to rephrase and expand, first of all, the support. It is for Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed based on the fact that, one, he is the elected Prime Minister of the second most populous country in Ethiopia, in Africa, namely Ethiopia. And so the support is for the duly elected head of state, and equally important, the notion of the protection of Ethiopian sovereignty. Mm-hmm. So it's really important that we understand what it is and we frame it within that lens. Mm-hmm. And this is part of why the same place where we were celebrating Bob Marley's birthday in 2005, where a mere 250,000 poured out. Mm-hmm. The estimated numbers this morning, and I was watching it with my husband, who is in Addis, in Kasanchis, just a few steps away from the event, mm-hmm. mentioned hundreds and hundreds of thousands, as you can see in the images. Mm-hmm. So this is a fight for the sovereignty of Ethiopia, and as we peel it back, the issue of our dam. But yes, indeed, Rastagas is correct.
Yes. All right. So we want, as you talk about the issue of our dam, before we go there, let us look at the TPLF, which we have been talking about this morning, right? And if you can help us to understand what's happening there. Rastagasa hinted on it a bit. He said, listen, this when we talk about the Tigray people, because I think, Dr. Docter, language is important, isn't it? And you just pointed that, how we frame things. So help us to understand the TPF within Tigray and within the wider context of the war on the government of Ethiopia.
Okay, so let me again give some better context or more context. Ethiopia is a country which is over 1 million square kilometers. larger than the United States of America. So when we talk about what's happening in Ethiopia, let's give ourselves some geographical context as well.
Yes.
Within that, we have 9 established regions, one of which, and one of the smallest, is indeed the Tigray region, where the historic Tigrayan people they're same Ethiopia. There's no difference. As a matter of fact, they're the same people that are in Eritrea. Okay, they share the same bloodline, same history. Nonetheless, there is, as any clan or ethnic group in the world, their values, cultures are similar, and therefore they cling together. We stick together. We see it in the Rastafari community, much less those of indigenous deep-rooted bloodlines. And so while the TPLF is a specific wing, it is the Tigray People's Liberation Front. It is not the Tigrayan people on a whole per se. It is a group within Tigray who has been unleashing their terror on Ethiopia since last November. However, where the Tigrayan people on a whole come in is that, one, there are sympathizers. Two, there is that notion of, collective security, and these are our people, so no matter what happens or what they're doing, even if we don't like it all, we're going to stick with them. And then you have those few voices of Tigrayans, like a Hermela Aragawi, who is one of the leading journalist voices, who is Tigrayan and is basically standing up and part of a campaign. I want to insert this from now, called #NoMore. #NoMore. That is expressing the pro-Ethiopian narrative, because we did miss our mark in terms of understanding how deep and how powerful TPLF is rooted both in the United States, in Europe, and other spaces, and the resources that they had to mobilize social media and paint a picture of ethnic violence and these other things that are basically red herring.
Yes,
This is a group that led Ethiopia for 27 years, and I often liken it to that husband that beat his wife and children for so many years. There were those lovely moments when she thought he would change, and they had family vacations, but he would come back and beat her. And when she decided to leave, he said, well, if I can't have you, no one will. And he decided to then massacre. This is where we are.
Yes.
The TPLF has been voted out, and so here we stand now. The thing is that everybody is cautious about what they want to say. This is not the time for us to backpedal, nor to shy and move away, because people are dying. My husband is Amhara. He's right there in Addis Ababa. This is real. This is not a news story. This is lives and livelihood. When I go home next week, I mean, don't go home. It's home. Yes. I'm on a plane. We have to wake up, and especially the Pan-African community. It's very difficult because we're also getting mixed messages from, for instance, the African Union, where the chairman is putting out statements for, ceasefire and peace talks. Well, Prime Minister, he did a ceasefire back in May. June, actually. There was a ceasefire.
So
and
as
the
you
TPLF refused to retaliate,
Yes.
So what more can one do but fight to the end, bring the enemy down, and restore the dignity and protect the sovereignty of Ethiopia?
My sister, we've had some... thank you so much for that. We've had some discussions here. We started covering this thing seriously under Donald Trump, and we signaled the warning because we saw the sanctions on Ethiopia, and we also saw how the Trump administration was positioning itself Egypt, Israel, and the GERD, the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam, and also that ongoing Cold War with China. Help us to understand how the international politics is playing out in Ethiopia. We see InfoWars. Now this is what the U.S. is using, InfoWars. But how are we to understand the U.S.'s role in Ethiopia right now and the response of the Biden administration to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in terms of the sanctions that have been levied on the Ethiopian people and the funding, some of the funding that have been withdrawn? How are we to understand the U.S.'s role, the EU's role and the Africa Union's role in what we see, the response that we see to Ethiopia?
Okay. Where the latter is concerned, the African Union is predominantly funded by the European Union. And so that has dictated directions and policies, particularly under the current chairperson. Previous chairpersons had more Pan-African tendencies, frankly speaking. We saw what happened to our sister ambassador, Dr. Irie. And so I think we have to take it for what it is. Somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
And let's face it, when you're at the helm, you have the ability to do that. No country on the face of this earth can have their military who is sleeping attacked and then be told, let's sit down and discuss it with them. That does not happen. And Ethiopia should be no different. There should be a different way in which we engage and deal with internal affairs, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
The second instance in terms of the U.S. and media, I'm going to give you one perfect example. Over the last 3 days, the trending story, Reuters, Washington Post, everybody's covering it. 9 individuals, beknownst to anyone, and I am quite linked within both government and other entities in Ethiopia. 9 individuals show up to do a press-up, and all the media comes out and then report, they represent 9 coalitions. They're all based in Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows them. Nobody has disclosed what organizations or entities are their affiliation of these so-called coalitions. Yet still, that's the story that's trending, that a coalition force, and he stands up. This is all on Twitter. This is all out there. This is not secret, and says, we're going in to topple the government. So either Abiy turns in, or this happened 2 days ago.
Yes.
BBC 3 days ago interviewed Getachew Reda, who says the same thing, the spokesperson of the TPLF. We're going to go in and we're going to march. Why are we giving platforms to entities who are recognized by the USA? By the way, the TPLF has been recognized as a terrorist organization. Why are we giving platform to them? Why is it that Twitter is shutting down the campaign as much as we try with a hashtag no more campaign? Why is it that, even Jeff Pierce, who, although is a Canadian, is very pro-Ethiopia, is being threatened for his Twitter account to be shut down? Mm-hmm. Why is this happening? Because we understand that we're in a war of words. Yeah. We understand that we're in a time where appearances matter and followers matter, right? And so you get that information out there, especially to a country like Ethiopia that is still somewhat insulated. Yes, we have social media, etc., but we're still a traditional country, and so news tends to move around. What happens with the cousin in Addis finds its way to Diridawa or to Hawassa or to Shashamani. It's that kind of, telling Ethiopian versus necessarily CNN, watch CNN and get the information, or Reuters and so forth. So this is a major issue that we're facing now. And if you will notice, a lot of placards during the protest this morning at Mescal Square, there were placards that said, CNN, stop the fake news. BBC, stop the fake news. This is all we're saying. And asking for reporters like yourself to dig deeper and look at other sources. And frankly, Twitter has been the main space now where information is being dispersed. One of them, Facebook shut down the Prime Minister's Facebook page because he made a statement about our blood and bones will bury them.
I saw that, yes.
Again, there has to be cultural context. Bear with me 1 second. When we're looking at Ethiopia, we have to look at it from the Ethiopian cultural lens. We fought and won Adwa and various battles, even against Egypt, by having that united national spirit. Everybody came out, right? And they did fukara. This is where they say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. That is part of the culture. This is how you rev up the society to be a part of the victory. And that's what we saw at Mescal.
And it's interesting, we're going to go to a quick break, but it's interesting because we watched that testimony from the Facebook whistleblower who spoke of her concern in that testimony, she said that the war was being stoked in Ethiopia by Facebook's negligence, and she was very concerned about that. We weren't quite sure how to contextualize that, but how we ran with it here was to say that we see the escalation of the war on the side of the TPLF, and we saw what was coming out of the reporting from Al Jazeera, the reporting from Huffington Post, the reporting from just the Western media generally, and interestingly, Al Jazeera taking that negative stance on the whole thing. And that basically what that was saying to us was that this was more than just an information war. I wanted to talk, when we come back, Dr. Megu, on what I saw the global research is referencing, talking about this hybrid war and what it's comprised of. I'll be right back. A very special guest on the line is our own Dr. Desta Megu. Mama Desta, she resides in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where she owns and operates a consulting firm. She is the former managing director at the Bob Marley Foundation, and Dr. Megu presently organizes cultural events and initiatives for various clients, including the embassies of Ghana, Portugal, and the USA. She also serves as a liaison to the Africa Union Commission for the Accra, Ghana-based AU Diaspora Africa Forum, where she's responsible for strengthening African diaspora relations. We're talking about Ethiopia. Dr. Megu, the global research, November 6th, and they've been writing on this because there are stories in November 4, November 3, and now November 6th. They're talking about U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa threatening Ethiopia. As a matter of fact, the headline reads, U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa threats against Ethiopia. And it points out that Jeffrey Feltman, who is a special envoy, has released an extended and very manipulative statement ahead of his visit to the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. And he continues, this American official intended to set the narrative that his country's mainstream media proxies should follow for intensifying their information warfare against Ethiopia. He talks about a hybrid war. And the article talks about a hybrid war, where they say that Ethiopia is facing an unprecedented hybrid war onslaught comprised of military, political, economic, and information components, which requires a comprehensive strategy for countering. But the article also talks about the strength of Ethiopia and the fact that Ethiopia, although victimized, will not and is not about to back down. I want to look at these different strategies being used by the U.S. government, the military, the information, because we think, though, that they're heading to a military situation. I'm not quite sure how you see this. Is America gearing up for military intervention in Ethiopia?
You know, they're trying to set the tone for that, obviously, and the rationale. And one of that has come through the TPLF, who has been tweeting that some of the Tigrayans and sympathizers are being imprisoned and disappeared, hold U.S. citizenship. So therefore, this is reason for the State Department to get involved. You know? So they are pushing and pushing and pushing the envelope as far as they can to set the tone for it. The thing to understand is Ethiopia is a sovereign nation. Every country has the right to decide its destiny, right? Mm-hmm. And so Ethiopia, although very frankly speaking, and the Prime Minister has said that, there's been some missteps. Mm-hmm. We were not prepared for the level. You know, there's an Ethiopian saying that the TPLF has made the devil feel jealous. Mm. You know? Mm-hmm. And so what Ethiopia needs to do right now and is doing is trying to ensure that, one, they begin to sensitize, especially the Pan-African community and the continent. The Prime Minister actually visited Accra, Ghana. He was in Senegal. He visited Uganda with Museveni. As a matter of fact, the Diaspora Africa Forum was called into that meeting when he visited Ghana, and Ambassador Bennett shared, of course, the role of the African diaspora, and how we can further assist and so forth. So there's a lot to do, but when you're juggling all of this, and the TPLF has absconded, has left with, you know, they cleaned out the banks. They cleaned out the army in terms of, equipment and the technology and the intelligence. They're continuing to stay on every step that the national defense is making.
Yes.
TPLF knows about it. And on top of that, as I said, you go back to culture and the protection that is provided by, your own people. It's problematic and it's dynamic, and we're trying to find out how the best ways that we can win it. And that starts with information sharing. So then individuals can act accordingly. I did want to say something though. You mentioned about a woman. That woman you're speaking about is Maureen Achien. She was the head of mission for the International Organization of Migration, based in Kenya. She's someone I've known for several years, someone who's committed, loyal, and that she was treated the way she was by the UN for simply saying UN cannot continue to send forces in that jump over the national government, federal government, and jump up to TPLF is highly wrong. And we know, we can count how many times UN got it wrong. They got it wrong in Rwanda.
Yes.
They got it wrong in Haiti. We can go on and
on. And that's a crux of the matter too, because the UN is hardly ever right on the continent of Africa and in black countries, so that, and especially in situations like these, so that the uproar that we're hearing and the taking of the United Nations side by so many of us, so many Pan-Africans, so many black people, is almost frightening. Where is the critical thinking? Where is the deep thinking on what is unfolding in Ethiopia? You mentioned when you came on initially the GERD. What role does the Grand Renaissance, the Ethiopian dam, what role is all of this playing? And let me just put in at the same time an Ethiopia's relationship with China. How might this be impacting on what we see coming out of the United States toward... Well,
China is certainly a threat. Let me start with the latter. China is certainly a threat in terms of the U.S., concerns in Ethiopia. That's a fact.
Yes.
It's competition, okay? And so that's always there. And it's ironic because since I've been here in Ethiopia, America, the last couple of months, it continues. Everything you pick up, American flags, everything, made in China, made in China. So the hypocrisy continues. Ethiopia has the right, like any sovereign nation, and much like Emperor Haile Selassie did, he had strategic alliances, whether it's for economic purposes, political purposes, health, what be it, that is the right of every nation to decide on who they deal with and the terms of reference. So that should be again left to that country. Yeah. Now, mind you, just on a tangent, my biggest issue about China being in Africa is that we as Africans are not setting the terms of engagement and boundaries are being crossed. That's another show. Now, if we go back, however, to the situation of GERD, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, this was a twinkle in the eye of Emperor Menelik II. By the time Emperor Haile Selassie came along, it became a real vision, where even monetary notes had a picture of the dam on it, and this was something that was talked about. And this is only natural. We're sitting on the Abai, the source of the Nile. Now, many don't even know the role of Egypt. Egypt has had an industrial park in the Tigray region in Mekelle for the last several years. They have pumped millions and millions of dollars. And when this offensive began last November, they had the nerve to even put out a statement that they're looking for reparations for any funds that are lost, income lost because of the war, because of the interruption. They are soundly behind a lot of the funding that is going on to young. Before the offensive started, we would see these little uprising of youth. It's a little youth coming in from the country parts, whether it's Shashamane or other areas, with these cell phones. And it's like, where are these little youth? They've been just paid off, and Egypt has a major role to play in this because, again, they keep putting out this thing that, well, the British said that we control the Nile, so we have to stick by that colonial. No. Ethiopia, as the second most populous country on the continent, over 110 million, as I said, has the right to use our water to ensure that the other 70 million who currently do not have access to electricity can do so and therefore develop the country further, just as we developed Egypt with our waters, you know? And I love the statement of the Deputy Prime Minister at the UN General Assembly, and I would refer you back to that for further information as well. And he made the statement quite diplomatically that he hopes the dam inspires our neighbors to also look for sources, you know, of energy. Egypt has the sun, going to solar, going, you know. So this, my sister, is a complex, dynamic situation, and the best that we can do is, one, we've got to pray. We've got to unleash powerful prayers and meditation for this country that means so much to the world. Secondly, simple, the hashtag No More campaign. That's also very powerful. Third, not cutting and pasting and sharing stories, even though they may be sensational, that just perpetuate this lie, and as you said, this hybrid attack on Ethiopia.
And once again, to my listeners, the hashtag No More. That's a hashtag we're using this morning. And we're saying, go to Twitter, go to the sources. We have said from time to time in this space, as a matter of fact, every time we talk about Ethiopia, ignore the reports from the BBC, ignore the reports from CNN. As a matter of fact, the Western Eurocentric media is not your friend, not at a time like this. So find the sources, and they're there. Follow the Ethiopian Prime Minister on Twitter. Follow the journalists who are doing their work on Twitter. Do that. And there are other spaces too. And once again, we send you also to Global Research. Now, Dr. Docter.
But beloved, I also, if we're taking names and shaming, we're going to call out the Jamaican Observer, who also put out an untimely article several weeks ago, out of the blue, talking about how Shashamane is nightmare and not this, you know, paradise. That we so let's be clear now. How did that pop up all of a sudden?
My sister,
you know?
The Jamaican media is part of the Western media, and we make that clear in this space. That when we talk about media generally and Western media, we see that because the Jamaican media is an interesting space, and I call out my colleagues every time, that what we do, generally speaking here, is lazy journalism or no journalism. So we just cut and paste. If the BBC is carrying it, then it becomes our lead story. CNN is carrying it, then it is our story. And that is how journalism works in Jamaica. So nobody's taking the time to call into Ethiopia, to make a connection with people like yourself, Dr. Desta Meku, or to have the conversation from a position of critical thinking. It is what it is with the media in Jamaica, and we're tired of calling them out. But I think on Ethiopia, we must call out the media, the Jamaica Observer, the Gleaner, and everybody who has been just regurgitating what they're getting from the Western sources. What would your advice be to Jamaicans generally, who are now going to ensure, it's reactive, but it's better late than never, that we take up this, the cause of Ethiopia in the way that we should, and to journalists who want to get to the truth and the facts of what's really happening in Ethiopia?
Right. Again, a simple thing is that hashtag No More campaign. We want this message out there. We know what, you know, we're in a time where social media matters. Okay? And so this is really important. Again, looking at other sources, like I mentioned before, Hermela Arigawi, she's really been a good and consistent and professional journalist that is giving information in a timely and appropriate manner. Third, where Rastafari is concerned, because that is a big part in the optics in terms of the Jamaican community, the Rastafari community has to also hold Jamaica accountable for stories that can put people's lives at risk. Just to go back, that article was just not a cut and paste of what was happening in Ethiopia. It was specifically targeting Rastafari about our complaints about what's happening in Ethiopia. That put people at risk. We were called by government officials to say, what is this? So we have to do everything we can to build bridges. This is not about, you know, scandal and sexy stories and sensationalism. This is really about people's lives. People are dying. My husband's family is being butchered in Amhara region. This is not a story. This is real. So let us be sympathetic. And also, because I'm noticing now there's a lot of these little GoFundMe campaigns popping up and telethons and this and other. Who are they accountable to? Where is this money going? Who are they raising money for? What is this about? Right now, we are super sensitive in Ethiopia to the point of paranoia. We don't know who is who, which means heavy scrutiny is being placed out there. But Jamaica matters where Ethiopia is concerned. Jamaica's soft power, Jamaica's prayers, Jamaica is more powerful than it could understand in terms of the cultural and historic context of Ethiopia. And that support, that love poured out will go a long way, whether through the hashtag no more or just, again, not feeding in to the negative stories.
My sister, I'm so sorry that we're out of time, and I want to thank you so much for coming on at very, very short notice. We're going to keep in touch with you. I know you're heading home at the end of the week, you said, and so we'll continue to have these conversations. Once you get in, we want to make that connection with you again as you journey back into Ethiopia to give us an idea of what's happening on the ground. Thank you so much, Mama Desta. What you have done is to put things in perspective for us, and this we take it from here. Thank you so